Hello, this is Dr. Eric Bricker, and thank you for watching A Healthcare Z. Today's topic is, how much do employee benefits professionals make? Now, it is incredibly important to understand the labor market for a variety of areas in healthcare. We've talked about it for doctors, we've talked about it for nurses. Let's understand the labor market for employee benefits professionals themselves. And so what I've done is I've basically divided them into two categories. There are employee benefits professionals that work for employers, and there are employee benefits professionals that work as broker consultants. And so I've then further broken it down into a matrix, right? Because you got to have a matrix, into a senior position and more of a middle position at both the employer and the consultant. So if you're in a senior position in benefits at an employer, then you have a title like the VP or the Director of Total Rewards. Now, the range of compensation for a Director of Total Rewards is $139,000 to $233,000 per year. Now, the analogous job at a broker consultant would be like a vice president. Now, a vice president at a benefit consulting firm makes between $233,000 to, coincidentally, right? I didn't make this up. I'll leave the links in the show notes. So $233,000 to $475,000. Whoa! If you do the math on that, in other words, you find the average here on the total reward side and compare it to the average here on the consultant side, that means that benefits consultants make 90% more than their peers who work for an employer. In other words, if you work as a consultant, you essentially make double. And oh, by the way, that's exactly why a whole bunch of people who used to be the heads of total rewards at companies now work as consultants. And you really don't see too many consultants go over here and work as the head of total rewards because they'd have to take like a 50% pay cut. Okay, next up. For like the middle position at an employer, oftentimes they would have a title such as like benefits manager or comp and benefits manager. Now they make a range between $98,000 and $137,000 per year. Now sort of their comparable person at the consulting firm would be like the account executive. Now the account executive at the consulting firm makes between $110,000 to $175,000. Again, more. Now again, if you take sort of the middle point between the benefit manager salaries and the middle point here between the account executive salaries, and you compare the two, that means that the account executive at the consultant makes about 21% more than their sort of, peer at the employer. So, what are some anecdotal implications of this? So, at Compass, when we were a vendor, we were trying to hire away some of these consultants to come work at us at Compass. And we had to try, in order to get them to even consider working for us, we had to pay them about $350,000 in order to get them to come work for us. And shoot, that was like going on like almost 10 years ago. So it's probably more than that now, okay? Now, also too, I was talking to the president of a regional broker consulting firm, pretty big place. And they have a fair number of, young people that they hire right out of college. And one of the people that they hired right out of college was pre-med, and she wanted to work for a couple years and then go on to medical school. And she was a fantastic employee. She was a fantastic sort of junior level person at this consulting firm. And so the president really wanted to keep her. And so the two of them had a meeting. And he kind of explained to her the economics of, look, you're really good. And over time, you could work your way up to making this kind of like VP money compared to like what a doctor makes. And you don't have to spend 4 years going to medical school. You don't have to do a residency. And you don't have to take on tons of educational debt. And so that talk was very compelling, such that this young woman then decided not to go to medical school, because it was a more attractive sort of career direction for her to stay as a consultant. Now, there are specific implications of this at the employer, at the plan sponsor level for actually running the plan as well. So, if we want to look at best practices for employee benefits professional compensation, then there's probably no better company to look at than Walmart. Why? Because Walmart's entire business model is around having lower prices, right? And the way that Walmart is able to achieve lower prices is because they're able to be the low-cost sourcer of all their stuff, right? So they buy it for super cheap, they distribute it for super cheap, and guess what? They also pay very close attention to their employee benefits spend because they need to be the low-cost sourcer of health insurance and healthcare for their employees so that they don't have to increase the prices in the Walmart stores, right? They compete on price and selection. So, what does Walmart do? Walmart hires their employee benefits leaders who work at Walmart from consulting firms. So they're like head people came from this side of the business. And in order for them to hire them to be on this side of the business, in other words, to go from the consultant side to the employer side, they have to pay them consultant-like salaries. Now keep in mind, Walmart is super cheap. They are super smart, and they are not going to pay an above, average or above market amount for an employee benefits professional unless they find value in it. And guess what? They do. Now, I'm saying, well, that's Walmart. That's a huge organization. Well, let's break it down for a smaller self-funded organization. Let's say it's a company with 1,000 employees. There should be an extra zero there. I left it off. Okay, so the average cost per employee per year now on a plan is $15,000, right? You got single employees that are less. You got an employee plus family that's like closer to like $24,000. So when you average it all up, the average employee costs on average about $15,000 a year. Okay, so you take the $15,000 a year times the 1,000 employees. That means that this employer is spending $15 million a year. Now, let's say they currently had sort of this compensation structure for their head of total rewards and their benefits manager. Let's say they had a team of 2. It's very typical for a company with 1,000 employees to only have a benefits team of 2. Shoot, sometimes there's only 1. There's only like the head of total rewards, and they report to the VP of HR, and like that's it. So let's just say, now sometimes there's 3, but let's just split the difference and say there's 2 people who work in benefits at this employer, and you take like the middle salary points for these 2 areas, and that gets you to $186,000 for the senior benefits person and $117,000 for the middle benefits manager person. Now, let's say you had to then you wanted to hire then somebody away from a consulting firm who's a VP, and you wanted to hire somebody away from a consulting firm who is an account exec. That means you'd have to then pay them again the median points, which for the VP at the consulting firm is $354,000, and for the middle point for the account executive is $143,000. Anyway, you do the math on that, and you would have to pay $194,000 more between what you're paying the benefits professionals now versus what you would have to pay them in order to attract these people over. So you'd have to spend roughly an extra $200,000 per year to do that. Well, let's compare that $194,000 to the $15 million total that you're spending on the plan, and that is 1.3%. In other words, you're needing to increase your spend for your plan by 1.3%. And you're obviously going through a cost-benefit analysis to say, okay, well, can we increase our plan cost by 1.3% per year in our own employee cost to run the plan? And will that translate into lower overall costs and claims costs for the plan? And the answer is, that's totally doable. So like I said in a previous video, like Purdue University took their trend from what the industry average is for universities at 6%, and they moved it to 1%. So that's a 5 percentage point difference a year that was achieved through, now what Purdue did is they also just had a larger team. So you could pay people more, you could also just hire more of them. So the point is that potentially one of the best strategies that an employer could do to lower their overall health plan costs is to hire away consultants from consulting firms and to actually have them work for the employer. It's just a suggestion. And thank you for watching A Healthcare Z.